Good afternoon, folks. We're having a look today at, I'm biting the bullet on this one, I'm going to have a look at Spline. Okay, it's just something I'm going to have to do. There's no getting away from it. It's a pain in the backside, but hey ho, has to be done. So, without further ado, let's start deciding what we're going to do. The idea here is that when we finish a spline, we're going to recalculate its X and Y, and we're going to adjust the last point in the spline and then move it in line with what we want. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to find out which direction our spline is currently going. Okay, now I'm not even sure we do that. Okay, so what we need to do is find out which way we go first, and that is probably going to be in. Now what I realized was this is a static mesh. I don't think you can add an instance mesh to the, well, maybe you can. We'll investigate that further later, right? But what we want to do is right. So here we can find out where we are, right? We can find out whether we're on doing the X or doing the Y. Okay, so what we can do is we can add a variable and we can say current axis. Okay, and we can make it an integer, or we could make this anything we want, really. We should really try and we should actually make a enum out of it. Okay, right, let's make an enum. We've also, which are we using these? Clamp X or Y? Let's have a look to see if we're actually using any of those variables. I don't think we are. Oh, it's saying clamping direction, which is E. Connection direction. So if we do that, right, that's fine. So we don't have the correct structure here, or enum. That is X and Y. Right, so we can use that. Enum clamp X or Y. And what's this one? Right, okay. So we can use enum clamp X or Y. Right, so if we go back into our spliner, we've created our current axis. That's E clamp X or well. Right, let's check out what this is called. Enum clamp X or Y. So we can just type clamp X or Y. Okay, so from there, get diff. So it looks like this get diff let's have a look. So it actually looks like our diff, we've already got this value, right? But I'm not entirely happy with that. That's doing something else, right? So what I'm going to do in this instance is we're going to set the current axis in here. Right. Gonna get this out the way. Gonna move this over a bit. Give ourselves some more space. Okay. We'll zoom in on this a bit so you guys can see it better. Right, so we're on Y, we're on X, okay. Right, so if we save that, that's now going to tell us whether we're on the X or the Y. So what we can actually do here is we can print the string. Hi Kofi, good to see you back. And we can get the current axis and toString. We're biting the bullet here, Kofi. We're going to fix the little quirks and make it easier to draw the splines. It's basically going to auto fix your connection. So let me demonstrate what I mean by this, okay? let me demonstrate the fix that we're trying to actually implement here. Right, hang on a second. So, what we want is for the spline not to be so pernickety. Okay, we want the spline to readjust itself to line up with the object that you click on. Okay, so what I mean by that is if we just do this and do this and do that. Now, when we draw the spline, let's say we draw it to here. Right, just hang on a second, right? We'll do this. And I'll show you what I mean. Right? So, what I want to happen is, when we start drawing our spline, right? We can draw it like that, and then say we're a bit short. Obviously that's not in line, but what I want to do is be able to click on that, and for the spline to automatically basically move along here a bit and then join up. Okay? At the moment it does have a go at it, but it only just basically joins from the last point on the spline to try and join it up, right? So now, as you can see, it has done it, but what I want is for this to be adjusted in line with this thing here. So this will get adjusted along here a bit, and then it will come up and join on. Okay, that's the plan. Which should make it easier for the player to actually join up things and make it look a lot better. Well, two things. It's going to make it look better, right? Plus, it's going to actually make it easier going forward. Right, was that actually doing what I was expecting it to do there? So, if we draw that again, right, I wasn't even paying attention to what I was actually doing. So the point being here, that once this is done, right, so you can see here that when I draw this, right, it is doing Y, right? Now it's doing X. Right, cool. Okay, as we've done before, guys, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it piece by piece. Okay? We're going to do the logic piece by piece. So, basically, this is going to be done on finish the spline. Okay? So, let's go to Is that an interface call? I don't know. Right, let's go to our, let's say, our let's go to our refiner. Okay. Now, this is going to have something in it that says finish the spline, right? And here it's here, right? So finish the spline basically says clear the spline points, then we make the spline, right? So we take the spline points and then we make another spline point, and then we add the spline. Okay? So, what we're actually going to do is we're going to calculate, we're basically going to get our current axis, right? We're going to get the current axis, we'll probably put this in a function, right? But basically what this is doing is saying it's getting the length and then it's doing an input key, right? But what we want to do is actually get this, or at least this, in fact, I'll tell you what, right, what we'll do is we'll paste that in there, right? Then we'll get these, we'll cut them, and what we'll do is we shall add a function. So this is going to be called adjust. No, we'll actually call it what it is. Tidy up XY. Okay, because that's basically what it's going to be. We're going to tidy up on the X or on the Y. Okay, and what we actually want to do here is -1 this. So we basically say -1, and that gives us our last spline point. Okay? And this is the spline point that we actually want to adjust. Right? So in effect, what we're going to do is, in the end, we're going to get, we're going to delete that just now, right? And actually this is going to need, this is going to be the end point, right? Because we're going to need the endpoint passed in. So that's going to give us our endpoint that we're trying to attach the spline point to. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch on this. Now we're not doing anything yet. This is a spline point that we want to muck around with. Now, if we're on the X, we want to do the Y. And if we're on the Y, we want to do the X. Okay? So, what we want to do is get a copy of this. I don't think this is actually going to be as difficult as I maybe thought it was going to be, but we'll soon find out. Famous last words, you know. So we can do that. Right? We know what the end point is going to be. So we can do that. And we can break the vector. Now, let's have a little think about this. I'm kind of, I'm reticent because I don't want to screw this up live. I want to get it right first time live, which is kind of making me slower to do it and just to try it. But hey ho, right. So, we're getting the end point, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to break the spline point. Okay. Then we're going to break that. So we're going to make a vector okay, so if it's on the X, we do the Y. So we do that. No, we don't. No, we don't. Yeah. We do Y. Right? And the next thing we do is we make a spline point. Right? And we do that. We do that. Actually, no, we don't. We do the input key. And then I think I think that's 50. Right, so I think we can recombine these and then just bang that in there. Yeah. Okay. Now, what I should do here is do a local variable. So this is going to be temp vector, and that's going to be a vector, okay? So in this case, what we should do is set the temp vector, right? We're going to do this in the Y as well. No, that's not right. This is right. Okay, so we'll delete this just now, right? And what this should actually be is the X should be that X. Okay? Now, if it's on the Y, we should change the X. And the Y should stay the same. And we can actually just do that, which would be a sensible thing to do. Right? So in either case, we're setting the previous to there. So we're getting ourselves an input key right, and now what we want is this index here. So what we're going to do in the short term is we're going to drag that out and we're going to say set array element, right, and it's going to be this value here, and then the item is going to be make spline point. Okay, this is going to go here. We're going to make our spline point. Okay, and the position is going to be temp vector. Okay, and the input key is going to come off here. And then these should plug in here and here. Okay, so with that done, I think that's it. Right, and now what all we need to do is put it in here. Right? So, excuse me, we just need to plug it in here, I believe. If I have got it right, there's a big possibility I haven't, of course. Let's be positive. This is going to work. That's if I can get to plugging the darn thing in, of course. Right. Moment of truth. Moment of truth, I believe. Right. I'm afraid to try this, guys. I'm afraid to try it. Because for some reason it won't bloody work. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to wait till this, and spin this round. Okay. I'm not too keen on the outline's okay. But I might prefer just doing a like a semi see-through material and just make it like red or green or something. Anyway, right, let's not talk about that. Let's get back to our what we're actually trying to do here, right? Gonna have to slow the speed down on that rotate as well. Right, so here we go. This is it. Moment of truth. So it's obviously not far enough. But darn you. So it didn't do it. Ah, hang on a second. Now, do we have we do. Let's check this for a second. What I'm going to do right, in draw the spline. It wasn't draw the spline. I think I just deleted the wrong thing there. Or sorry, removed it from the right. So it's not that. So that's add to spline, x-axis, y-axis. Is it set spline points? Right, so it's not that one. It's not set min max, not any of them. Right, it's not that. Right, okay, let's actually follow the logic here. Right, it's this one here. What I actually want to know is what this is, right? Because I think this is what we want. And that is actually the index that we want. So, let's try that again. I think what's happened is that it's not the last point on the spline at that moment. It's the last point that we changed it before we went to X or Y, right? So what we really want is probably the point on the spline where we are. Right, so that's 4, then we're at 7. Yeah, it's the current point on the spline. Wait a minute, is it? Yeah. Right, let's do that again just to prove what we're actually trying to do here. I haven't worked on splines for a while, so it's taken me a little bit to get back in the groove, but we'll get there, don't worry. Right, so the point is, and here is the point, when we click on here, we're getting 4. And then we get 8. Right. So basically what this is doing is it's getting our point on the spline, but what we want is the last change of axis from X to Y. Right, now I'm kinda sure it's the spline lock index, right? Let's see if we can find out what this one is. And what we should do is change this to 2 seconds, right? And then we should append to this right, and add a pin, and we'll say X. Right, so what we'll do is we'll put the current position in there, and we'll put the spline lock index in here. Now what I'm hoping this will show is this current spline lock index. Well, when we hit the button, let's say we're at position 4, right? So it's the fourth point on the spline. What I'm hoping is when we click the button to change direction, the spline lock index will say 4, right? But the current position will go up as we move the spline. Now, if that's the case, then we use the spline lock index in our tidy up X and Y, right? That's fundamentally the point, okay? So, let's try that again, shall we? And spin this round. We'll see where this takes us. Hey Kofi, how are you today? Are you feeling good today? Right, so now we've got to draw our spline. And yeah, you'll notice how it's staying at 3. So we use a spline lock index, right? So fundamentally, we go to here and we use spline lock index as our get. And this is where things go to crap usually. And this goes into here. Ain't guaranteeing nothing, guys. This gets a little bit complicated when you're trying to work it out. Because it's dynamic spline drawing, then it gets a little bit unpredictable. Okay, so we'll draw our building, or we'll put down our building. Then we shall add a breakpoint in here. And spin that around. Then we'll do that. Okay. Right. So what we got? Our current axis is X. So we're going to be going up here. So we step over that. And that's given us an X of that, a Y of that. Okay, so it's doing something. It's doing something, guys. Now, interesting indeed, because it did it. Right? It did it. which is kind of awesome, don't you think, guys? It kind of did it. All we need to do is now set all of our other values in X to the same thing. Right? But yeah. You'll see there, guys, it's actually did it. And on that point, I'm going to grab a quick cigarette and a little drink of milkshake, and I will be right back in about 2.5 minutes, and we shall sort out the last part of this problem. Okay, so on to the final part of the puzzle, right? Which is, we've set this up, okay? And now, what we do is get this, and we duplicate it, right? So we might have to do another switch here, or do we? No, we don't. We don't. We can drag this out a bit, right? Then we do a for loop. So we do a for loop. Okay. And it's from this thing here plus 1. Hey Richard, hope you're doing well. So we do it from the spline index plus 1. Right? To that minus 1. And that's our loop. So basically what we're doing is we're getting the final checkpoint on the spline. Then we're adjusting it to be in line with the connection point. And then every index after that we have to adjust the index point. Okay, now it might, I'm going to do this, I know this isn't the best way to do it right now, but we're going to do it, right, just for clarity, and I'll probably clean it up later and make it sort of more efficient, but for the sake of clarity and to get it working in the first instance, right, what we'll do is we're going to get that right, and on the X, remember we're changing the Y. Okay, so we're going to bring this in over here, right, and we're going to do our for loop. Okay, and that's going to give us the index of the spline point that we want to change. Okay, so we basically do this. So we want the Y to come from this break vector. Okay, so each of these, and we're going to get this, and we're going to be getting a copy, right, and the index is going to be coming from here. Okay, and we're going to be breaking this and then we're going to be grabbing this. Okay, we'll try that again, shall we? We'll just add a reroute node. Okay, so we add a reroute node, then we can drag it over to here, As I said, guys, we're just going to get this to work first, and then we'll tidy it up and get it to be a bit more efficiently done, right? But in the first instance, all we want is for it to work. Now, we're going to break this. And we're going to set it up exactly the same way as we did over here. We're going to make a vector, so we copy that, and we paste it there. Right? And we're going to split that. We keep the X the same and the Z the same. Is that correct? The Y comes from the break vector. Okay. So that comes from here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll move this across a bit. Again, I repeat, we shall now, what we need to do is do this, duplicate it, and we are going to set the array element. We're going to set the array element. The index is going to be this index here. Okay. And don't worry guys if you can't see it, I can't see it either. I'm just guessing, right? So we're going to make a spline point. The input key is going to come from here. The position is going to come from here. And that's us. Okay? That should go in there. And basically, on the Y, we do exactly the same thing. So we can duplicate that. The difference being that we don't do the X, we copy the Y, and we set the X from the endpoint. Okay? Now, I am under no illusion here that this is going to probably not work. But our logic is fine, I would say. What do you think, guys, in the chat? Do you think this is going to work? Or do you think it's going to go to shit? Well, I don't know how many people are actually watching, but that wasn't really a vote of confidence. But hey, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, guys. We're going to save it before this all goes to crap. Right. So let's go. Let's see if this actually works. I will be a very happy and very surprised man if it does. I can assure you of that. So we rotate that. We've got to wait for 10 seconds for the effects on this that aren't actually shown at the moment, but anyway. Right. So here we go. Moment of truth and all that. Conveyor. Go. Do it to there. Resume. Guys. 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 That worked. The only thing was it didn't delete this. Right, so wait a minute. If we go back to our event graph, and it was finished the spline, wasn't it? But it finished the spline is actually a custom event. So we need to look in here. Okay, so I'm going to say that this goes here and that goes there, then we drag that to there, and let's try that again. Okay, so once this becomes active, we can actually do it like kinda crazy ways now. So we can do that. So if I do that, then do that, and then say connect to that. It is working, but it's not clearing the spline. Well, that's an interesting one. Right, so if you do it right, what I'm going to say here is, if you do it short, it's fine because it adds to the spline, right? If you do it too long, then we're going to have to do something else. We're going to have to clear the whole spline out and then recalculate the final position. So in actual fact, the best way to do this is to clear the whole spline and basically make a temporary, the final sort of spline build, if you know what I mean. Right, but we're going to have a think about this one. So what I'm saying is that if we are short, it works, right? But if we go too far, it kind of doesn't. Right, so what we should do is, yeah, we need to build a building. My thoughts are on the problem here. So let's test this out again if we're short. Okay. So if we're way short, right, it is going to fix it. But it's still drawing this part here for some reason. Right. So this kind of works, but kind of doesn't. So we're going to try something. Hi, Ina, from the Ukraine. Hope you're safe. Right, so the problem here is I believe, right, I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it, okay? What I'm going to do is we're going to add one spline point at the end. Right, now our final spline point that we'd set up here is right. We know this is right, okay? So in theory, this loop, we should remove all the indexes at this point, right? So what we'll do is no, sorry, never used the Go dot, and it's been 5 years since I did anything with Unity, so no. Not really. At the end of the day here though, what we need to do is we need to delete or remove items in this index. Okay. Now, I'm just wondering here. This here, right? What I want to know is, right, spline lock index, right? This is the one that we're interested in. Spline lock index. Now, what I want to know is when it's set, right? It's set to the length -1, which means, yeah, for the past while, yeah. I take it you work with Godot or Godot or whatever way you pronounce it, I don't know. Right, so the spline index is giving us the final one, right? So that shouldn't actually be +1. So the first index of this, or should it be +1? Right, we'll try it, right? We'll try it and see what happens. Right? No, I'm not in Edinburgh. But you're not far away from where I come from. You're only about 23 miles out. Mr. Spock, good afternoon. Right, so what I'm going to do is, I'm procrastinating now, by the way, because I know this is going to have to be another set of different loops and then add a final spline point, which is probably going to screw the whole thing up, right? So what we're going to do is get this and remove. Oh, we weren't going to do that at all, right? So that's taking that straight for the spline index, which is correct, because it's the 1 minus, right, okay. So anything over this number let's just, first things first, we're going to find out whether we're on X or Y, okay? So we need to find this current axis, right? So we want to know what the current axis is when we do our example so that we know what code's running. Because we're doing a switch, it could be either or. So we should really check first. Right, so basically we're going to check first. Oh, and while we're waiting, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button. I usually do my shilling at the end while nobody's watching, or at the start while nobody's watching, but anyway. I should really do it at the start you know, but then that's going to make everybody click off the video immediately because nobody wants to hear that. But I suppose it's part of what you got to do. Right, anyway. Right. So we're on Y. We're on X. And I should really turn that bloody thing off while I'm... Right, so step over and we're on X, okay? That's what we're on. Now, as you can see, it does work, but it's leaving the old values in as well. Oh, you did. Thank you very much, mate. If you check the Discord, the description, there's a link to my Discord as well. I always try to help people out on Unreal to the best of my ability. So now that might not be very much ability, but hey ho, at least I know some things. Right. So we know we're on the X, right? Our example is on the X. Oh, I get asked this question a lot. Okay, here's why I don't go to Unreal Engine 5. Number one, it ain't ready for prime time, and Epic say that themselves, right? They basically say don't put a production game out on Unreal Engine 5, right? Now, that's all well and good, but Epic have done it, right? Fortnite is done in a modified version of Unreal Engine 5, right? So there's that. Number two, it makes my computer run about 10 degrees faster. 10 degrees warmer, right? Which isn't a big deal, but it just shows you the difference. Okay? Now, the only additions to Unreal Engine 5 are the fact that you've got Lumen and Nanite, right? Unreal Engine 5 is basically 4.27 with a new interface in Lumen and Nanite. That's it, right? And the other downside to it is a lot of plugins don't work on Unreal Engine 5 yet. So if you're using plugins that you're used to and they don't work on Unreal Engine 5, well, you're just crap out of luck, mate. So basically that's why I don't use Unreal Engine 5 at the moment. Okay? I hope that answers your question. And I've completely lost my train of thought now. But hey ho. Now, what we want to do right, so this has to be +1, okay? It has to be +1. Because otherwise we will delete our newly made version of things, okay? Which we really don't want to do. Really. Right, so we pop that into first, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to remove index, okay? Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to remove the index for all of the ones after our last point of turning. Yeah, as I said, I mean, the plugin thing is it's not as big an issue probably as people say, because you can basically update the plugins yourself if they're simple enough to do. If they require no changes, you can basically recompile it in 5 and it'll be fine, right? It's only for like things that haven't been updated in a while. Now there are quite a lot of plugins that don't get updated, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you don't use Lumen or Nanite and you're using 4.27, the only difference is the user interface. So if you're not bothered by, you know, if you're not wowed by the new interface, then why bother? But yeah, each to their own. No reason not to do it, is what I'm saying. Right, so we're going to remove an index, and then we're actually going to add to it as well. Right, so we're going to add to it. Right, we're going to make this spline point. Right, the index is going to be that, and basically the position is going to be that. Right? Now, this might go to complete crap. But hey ho, we'll find out in a minute. Right, so we do our probe, we do our thing, we build a building, we do our thing, then we await. Now, if my minor calculations are correct, right, then this might actually fix both the problems. And if it doesn't do what I think it's going to do, then it's basically going to go to crap. Oh, there is one or two. Right, so try this one first. I really need to switch that off when we're building splines. Right, moment of truth. Well, that kind of went a bit wonky, don't you think? It put that spline there. Right. I want to see something. I want to see. It was finish the spline, wasn't it? Event graph. Finish the spline. I'm just wondering here. Add to spline build. Do I actually want this to be before the clear so that it kind of rebuilds? No, I don't. Right, so we do have a problem here. What I'm going to actually do here, right, is I'm actually going to add a delay. I just want to see if this is like running a final time or something and causing our whole thing to screw up. Right? And what I'm actually going to do is go to here and put that other code back, right, so that this goes to here. Okay, and I'm going to remove this, right, and I'm going to see if that actually sorts out some of the issues here, because it might be just like a timing issue, that it's doing like a final redraw and then I'm not getting the sort of final redraw values back in time, and I'm really clutching at straws here. But this has happened before, where a little delay just allows things to get to a place where you want. So we're going to try it, because we're not far away, and that's the point here. We're not far away. It's just this part here. I mean, the code is working, but this part, the drawing the spline part, is just not working right. I don't know why this part has been left in. I mean, I don't even know what these actual parts are. I mean, they shouldn't exist anymore. I'll tell you what I'm going to do here, right? On the spline itself, right? let's have a look at the viewport. Now, the spline right, let's see if there's anything here. Okay. Right, tell you what we'll do is we're going to have a look at the spline while we're running it, and we'll see if there's obvious like differences between what our index or how many spline points there should be to what we think they should be. Okay? Now, if those are the same, right, so if we draw our spline, then we add it to our thing, so we can resume that, and there we have our 2. So we have 4, 8, I'd say about 13 spline points. Now if this is wrong, then the spline points is going to say around 20 or something, right? So if we say spline, right, so there's our 4 and there's our 4, which gives us our spline lock index of 8, right? Shared the stream? Don't know what you mean, Mr. Spock. Right. Can we... Right. So we've got all of them. Is it going to tell us how many it's got? Can you tell me how many spline points you've got? Or do I have to actually go through each of them? Oh, thanks, Mr. Spock. That's nice of you. Right, so we can go to the last one. It's 15. It's 15, right? And that's right, because that's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 more or less. So why it's drawing these, I don't know. Okay? So basically it shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be doing this to me. Right. Draw the spline. It adds the points to the spline component. we're updating the spline. We add the other stuff. We do the other stuff. Hey Parvesh, how you doing, mate? Right. I'm trying to see where else we basically do stuff to the spline, to see if there's like a function that I haven't done. Right. So we start the build. The start the build says start the do that. Right. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Clear the spline. Working title, Fabrica Espace. Working title. So we clear the spine. So let's see if there's anything in here. Right. Let's tidy this up, because it's been like that since the start, and I've never sort of got it in the right order. So it clears the spline points, then removes all the components. Okay. And do we have that? I'm pretty sure we do have that. In here. Which is here. So it's doing that. Hang on a second. I'm going to put it back where it originally was. So do we do this? Actually, no, we don't. Because we are adding this ourselves. Let's try this. Right? I think this is going to like screw everything up, but we're kind of struggling to remove that other spline, which is no longer a spline. We might have to do it of our own volition. Ah, that doesn't make any sense. If we're doing the clear spline points, then it should have cleared the spline. Right? That's just the tall and the short of it. So the fact that it hasn't is a bit of a worry. Right, so It's dependent on how far you build it, right? Because it's dynamic. You see, it's still drawing this other part. What is this and why is it drawing it? Okay guys, I'm going to have a quick comfort break. I shall be back in a moment to try and fix this. Be right back. Okay guys, we're back and let's see if we can get Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that, right? And then if we look at clear the spline, it's going to say that. Okay. And it should remove the spline components. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. Then if we go into here and we paste it, this is just me testing things to see if things are happening in the wrong order or not. Right, so if we do that and then on completed we do that, right, so we're kind of struggling away here on this one because I'm not 100% sure why it will be dark there. It's about what, 10 to 10. Right, so fundamentally we need this to start doing what we want it to do. Please. Come on, Miner. There we go. Okay. You see, if that's the case, that should not be there anymore. Because it's not clearing the spline. Right? It's just not doing it. Now, the point here is that if it's not clearing the spline, right, so we can do this as well if we want, right? So we can copy that and we can put this first. So in theory, that goes to there, that goes to there. Clear the spline points. That's in the actual spline component, right? So now when we hit this breakpoint, our spline should be erased. Okay? Right, let's see what happens here. I'm going to have to wait for a second or two. Right, so go to here, click on our conveyor belt, go to here, and you see that, guys? It's still there. Our spline is still there, even though we've told it to go away. Right, now there's a problem because it went away and it's done some weird shit. So basically that is a bad idea, putting this in here, right? That is a bad idea. Now let's have a look here. Ah, wait a minute. Let's go back here and let's undo that and leave that in there, right? But what we'll do is in the event graph we'll go back to here, save that, okay. Oh, what was that, Kofi? Right. So we'll do that. Click on our conveyors, click on here, drag that out, drag it to there. Resume. And yeah. Yeah, that's completely... No worries, mate. That's completely screwed things up. So we're going to put that back. And yeah. Yep, that should be update the spline. I'm kind of stuck. I am definitely stuck. stuck and struggling here on this one. My initial optimism with it actually drawn properly has been dashed. Right, whatever it is I've done here, I've completely screwed it because it's not doing anything now. Right. We have completely knacked it. So that's a bit of a quandary. Hang on a second. Should this be after the ad? I think it should, you know. Let's see what happens here, shall we? So we fire our probes. I've got ideas for the probes, by the way, guys. So if I can just get this to work, then we could maybe move on to that, but we need to get this working first at some point. So we can forget that for now. Right, so let's do that, then do that, and resume. And again, we are drawing it, and it is working, but it's not deleting this previous version. Right. Now, what I think is, I'm going to try something offline, because that's my 2 hours for the afternoon over. You guys, I hope you've enjoyed the stream. Thanks for joining. If you want to help me out or whatever, check out the description. You can join Discord, Patreon, buy my first Steam game. It's the link to there, it's on there as well. This is the bit I hate doing, the shilling part, you know. But I hope you've had a good time. I'll be back in 4 hours, and I shall see you then. Bye bye for now.